was a night of pure contrast for Leafs Nation, a mix of relief and anxiety, victory and concern. Toronto beat Philadelphia 5-2, but what lingered in the air was more than just a score. It was the image of Chris Tanev lying motionless on the ice after a collision that froze the heart of every blue and white fan. The defenseman, who had just returned from a concussion, had to be taken to the hospital, though fortunately, he showed movement in all his limbs. Meanwhile, off the ice, the Leafs front office seems just as active. With the trade deadline approaching, rumors say Toronto is aggressively pursuing a major addition, and the name Pavel Zacha from the Boston Bruins has appeared on their radar. The thought of seeing a historic rival wearing blue and white excites both fans and analysts, but the salary cap challenge and lack of trade assets make that mission nearly impossible. Between the tension over Tanev, the focus on the roster, and Matthew Knies' honest words about offensive mistakes, this is a moment of reflection and rebuilding. The win over the Flyers gave them some breathing room, but what comes next could change the course of the season. Hit that like button and drop a comment, Leafs Nation, because this space belongs to those who truly live the blue and white. News 1. It was a game that began as just another road challenge, but ended with Leafs Nation holding its breath. The Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the Philadelphia Flyers 5-2, but the ice told a much deeper story than the scoreboard. Chris Tanev, one of the team's defensive pillars, fell hard after a collision with Matvei Michkov, and for several long minutes, the result of the game stopped mattering. The defenseman had just returned from a concussion, and the hit, shoulder to shoulder, but with his head snapping back, left him motionless on the ice. The Wells Fargo Center went silent. Medical staff rushed over, stabilized his neck, and carried him off on a stretcher. Those were tense minutes of pure dread. And for anyone who's followed this team for years, it was impossible not to think about the weight he carries in the locker room, the grit he brings every single shift. When head coach Craig Berube spoke after the game, his tone was cautious but hopeful. He said Tanev was taken to hospital but had movement in all his limbs and might even return to Toronto with the team. And at that moment, the victory regained its meaning, because in the end, what matters most is knowing he's going to be okay. But on the ice, as Tanev was being taken away, you could see the emotional impact on the players' faces. Austin Matthews summed up what every fan felt. Whenever they bring out a stretcher, it's a bad feeling. We're all thinking about him. That line echoed through Toronto, because that's exactly what this Leafs locker room has been trying to rebuild. A sense of unity that goes beyond wins and losses. And there's a small but powerful detail. Before the injury, Tanev had assisted on Jake McCabe's goal. As if, even in limited time, he left his mark on the game, and the team responded in kind, playing with energy and focus all the way to the final buzzer. The truth is, for anyone who wears blue and white, seeing a player like Tanev go down is like reliving old ghosts that have haunted this franchise. Serious injuries, mental pressure, and that eternal feeling that the team must overcome not just opponent, but its own fate. But Leafs Nation knows every fall, every scare, every comeback is part of this team's identity. And if Tanev truly is okay, this night could turn from fear into fuel. News 2. Off the ice, the other battle for the Toronto Maple Leafs is against time and the salary cap. The trade deadline is approaching, and the front office has its eyes on reinforcements to keep alive the hope of a strong playoff run. The focus? A first-line forward who can fill the void left by Mitch Marner. But the problem is clear. Talent is expensive, and Toronto doesn't have much ammunition to trade. Even so, the name Pavel Zacha, the Boston Bruins star, has emerged as a possible target. The mere mention of it stirred the fan base. After all, Seeing a Bruins player in blue and white would be almost symbolic, a direct hit to a historic rivalry. Lyle Richardson of Bleacher Report mentioned the Leafs as potential suitors, but highlighted the obvious. The price would be too high. Toronto would have to give up first-round picks, prospects, and still perform salary cap gymnastics to make it happen. Still, the very idea of exploring Zacha shows how far the team is willing to go to take the next step, because that's the truth that's hovered over Toronto for years. The team has talent, but lacks the balance that turns good rosters into champions. Meanwhile, Boston appears willing to listen to offers. According to journalist James Murphy, the Bruins are evaluating the futures of Zacha, Mittelstadt, and others, depending on how the team performs over the next few weeks. And if they really put the check forward on the market, several franchises will line up to make an offer. In the middle of all this movement, Matthew Knies' post-game comments after the win over the Flyers came as an internal warning. He was blunt. "We're rushing too much on offense. We need to play with more structure. It's rare to see a young player address issues so openly, but it shows maturity and the kind of self-criticism the team needs." Head coach Craig Berube acknowledged the slow start, but praised the team's focus and offensive pressure. It's the kind of statement that tries to balance accountability with confidence. What's interesting is that this game, between the scare with Tanev and the post-game reflections, laid bare the Maple Leafs' current state. A talented team that constantly teeters on the edge of chaos. Sometimes too eager in attack, sometimes careless in defense. And that inconsistency is what keeps the Leafs from taking the next step. Whether Zacha's name is just a rumor or the beginning of something bigger, time will tell. But what's evident is that Toronto won't stand still. They know this could be the last chance for a core that has promised so much and delivered so little. And for the fans, that mix of hope and caution feels familiar. Because being a Leaf means living on that edge between dream and collapse, between this is our year and not again. It was a week that showed everything the Toronto Maple Leafs are: strength, fragility, hope, and fear, all blended together, as always, on the ice. The scare with Chris Tanev reminded everyone how brutal hockey can be, but also how resilient this team's heart is. Seeing the defenseman leave on a stretcher was hard, but the relief came quickly. He's moving, he's conscious, and that's worth more than any victory. Because deep down, Leafs Nation knows the jersey is heavy, but life comes first. And off the ice, the behind-the-scenes moves reignited another flame, the flame of change. Talking about Pavel Zacha is talking about ambition. It's the kind of rumor that shows Toronto still believes it can get there despite its limitations. Maybe they won't land him. Maybe the salary cap will close the door. But the very fact that the name is in circulation shows there's a plan, a constant search for something greater. Between the emotion of a convincing win and the internal criticism over tactical structure, what remains is an honest portrait of the moment. The Leafs are trying to mature, players holding each other accountable, the coach making adjustments, management exploring the market. It's a team fighting its own ghosts, and the fans, as always, right there with them. Because being a Leaf isn't about giving up. It's about getting up from the ice, whether after an injury or an elimination, and believing once more. And even if the path feels familiar, every season brings a new chance to write the ending this fan base deserves. That's what being a Leaf means. Believing, even when the ice feels like it's collapsing beneath you. Leave a comment, Leafs Nation, and hit that like button to show that this passion never freezes.